I'm going to be sharing with you in this video 10 signs that you are going through a spiritual awakening. Now, you might not know what's happening to you. You might be a little bit confused. Maybe your family doesn't know what's happening to you if you're with your family or wherever you are or whoever you're with. But you might be a little bit confused, like, what is actually going on to me? Now, if you have any of these signs applying to you, this is going to be a very clear indicator that you're going through a spiritual awakening, that you're having some sort of an awakening to the truth of who you actually are and the source of existence. Now, I'm also going to be sharing with you in this video some bonuses and some benefits to actually having this spiritual awakening, and I'm going to share with you why it's a gift and not actually a negative thing at all. So 10 signs that you are going through a spiritual awakening. If you're new to this channel, what I want you to do is I want you to hit that subscribe button. I want you to hit that notification bell because I do post a new video every single day. Also, if you want to work with me one-on-one personally, hit the link that's in the description box of this video. Now, sign number 1 is that you feel more connected to yourself. You feel more connected to yourself. You don't feel like really connecting with people as much. You just feel like connecting to yourself more. You just feel like it's not really about being comfortable or uncomfortable. It's kind of like a mix of both, but you're just like, you know what? I need to just focus on myself. Not even your lower self, or I mean, you could call it the higher self if you want, but you just feel very connected to yourself in a particular way that maybe you've never felt before. And so what this is leading you to is just a deeper connection to your own body and your own self. This might look like you aren't talking to people as much. This might look like you're disconnecting from your family or whoever it is that you're engaged with in your life. But you feel like you're more connected to your body, to yourself, whatever that means to you, but yourself. Maybe you're doing more art. However you're connecting to yourself, you feel connected to yourself in a new, profound way that you've never been connected to yourself in that way before. That's a huge sign that you're having a spiritual awakening. Now, sign number 2, you feel more connected to others. This is an interesting sign because it's like, well, wait a second, Francis, what do you mean more connected to others? I thought that you just said more connected to yourself. Well, what's happening is that what you can realize is that when you connect to yourself, you actually connect to others as well. This is actually one of the keys to spiritual awakening, and to actually be truly free is to see that when you're connected to yourself, only then can you truly be connected to somebody else. And you cannot be connected to somebody else in a way that you would be able to be connected to them in that way. Otherwise, I mean, you wouldn't be able to connect to them in that way until you connect to yourself in that way first. So if you feel more connected to others, meaning that you just feel this need to give more, you feel this need to just be of service more. You want to supply people energy. It's like you have all this energy and you have all these insights coming in and you're just like, I just want to help. All you can really do is just have this strong desire to just help people and to just share the insights and to connect with people. And you feel connected to people in that way because you feel very connected to yourself. You feel like you understand people in a way that you've never understood before. That's a huge sign. Now, I just threw in like 15 signs in there in number 2, but the short answer, or not the answer, but the sign is that you are more connected to other people. Now, sign number 3, this one's very obvious, but you're more connected to the actuality of what's happening in this present moment. What is actually happening right now. Because a lot of people live into fear, and they live into fear, which is obviously not real. It's false evidence appearing real, as Ralph Smart would say. But what you got to realize is that this fear that we're believing in is taking us away from the actuality of the present moment right here, right now. So the actuality of the present moment right here, right now is a very interesting thing because it really is the only thing that does exist. The interesting thing about fear is that when we're in fear, we don't realize that actually we're creating a story that's based upon a certain idea of something not existing, which is, of course, the core of this idea is the fear of death, which the fear of death is nothing more than the fear of the idea of not existing. I'm going to say that one more time. So the fear of death is nothing more than the fear of the idea of not existing. So actually it's fear of fear. It's not actually fear of something that can possibly exist. It's actually fear of an idea. So you're just scared of an idea. And that's actually what creates all this suffering in the body. Now, if you're starting to realize that you're more connected to the actuality of this present moment, the moment that is happening right here, right now, and you're seeing that fear is literally something that does not exist, but the only thing that really exists within your own experience of what fear is just the fear of the idea that you may not exist. If you're seeing that that's not real, that the actuality of this present moment is the only thing that's real. And some people might even look at you and say, oh, this person's acting delusional. I remember that when I was going through my spiritual awakening, my family thought I was absolutely nuts. For sure. My mom thought I was crazy. My family definitely thought I was nuts. But the truth is that because when you're going through this awakening, people might think that you're, I mean, I don't deal with people like this in my life anymore because I'm just who I am and spirituality is a normal part of my life. But when you're waking up, the people around you might not fully understand. And so if they're not fully understanding, it kind of leaves you in a position where you're not really sure how to deal with that. But we'll talk about that later. But anyways, if you're starting to realize that the actuality of this present moment is so real, it's the realest thing that can possibly exist, and maybe even people around you are thinking, oh man, this person's acting a little bit delusional, but you just see that the only thing that's real is just what's happening right here, right now. It's a huge sign that you are going through a spiritual awakening. Now, sign number 4 that you are going through a spiritual awakening is that you feel expanded. You feel like your awareness is expanded. So not only are you more connected and all these different things, but you actually feel expanded. Like you feel like your perception is expanding to a level that you've never actually been able to perceive of before. And this means in all directions. So in directions of consciousness, in the direction of giving love, you feel like you're able to give more love to people. You're able to perceive more of light. You just feel like you're a more open human being, just a more open, overall, more open and more expanded human being. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not closed off, like we said to certain people. You're open, but you're closed off to things that are not serving, but that still leaves you as this sort of open vessel, right? Obviously, you're going to create those boundaries with the things that don't serve, and that's critical, but you're still this open channel. You're just this beautiful open channel of just receiving all the divine energy in this present moment that you can possibly receive. It's just a beautiful divine vessel. This is so critical because once you start to realize this, what's happening is that now you feel expanded. There's not much more to say really other than what was just said. You just feel expanded and you feel very connected and you feel very just expanded. So that's the 4th sign. Sign number 5, you feel a strong urge to give. Just a strong urge to give back to people. So obviously you feel more connected to people, and I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but just to go a little bit more in depth on that desire to give, right? Because you're starting to have so much energy built up in the system that all you really want to do at some point is just give. And it's not even just about the energy overload that you might be experiencing, which of course I'm throwing in a bunch of signs all at once, but it's not even about the energy. It's just that you have a desire to give because you're realizing so many things. So maybe you have an instant desire to go tell your family or to go talk with somebody. It's just this desire just to give. If you have a desire to give, you're definitely going through some sort of a spiritual awakening. Not always, but you could be, because that desire to give is definitely a huge sign that you're going through a spiritual awakening, because you like that true desire to give can only come from a space when you have your cup completely full, right? You can't give anything if your cup's not full, can you? Because think about it. If your cup is not completely full, well, then you can't really give anything to anybody, can you? You can't really give much to anybody if your cup is not completely full. So really what I want you to understand is that if you have a desire to give, you're probably going through a spiritual awakening. And not always, you might not be, you might just have a desire to give. But especially though, if you're going through a spiritual awakening and you have this desire to give, it's definitely connected to this spiritual awakening, because the insights you're having, you just want to give. Now, one thing I'll tell you real quick though, before I go deeper into the video, is be careful who you give to, because you don't want to overgive. That's just my opinion. You don't have to do that if you don't want to or take that on, but that's just what I think. Sign number 6 that you are going through a spiritual awakening is that you feel connected to nature. You feel connected to go into nature more. Now, this is a sign that might not apply to every single person, but when you're going through a spiritual awakening, usually what happens is that you have a desire in some way to connect with what is natural. Now, it's an interesting perspective, because what is natural? Natural is an interesting perspective, because it's like, what can we consider natural versus unnatural? You know, isn't natural just like a human construct? Isn't that what it is? And isn't unnatural a human construct too? We'll save that for another video. But anyways, if you feel called to, just overall go into nature more or be more natural in some ways, maybe to eat more whole foods, right? Just to not to eat as much junk food, but to eat more whole foods, or to go into nature more, or to just simplify your life and go for more walks. I guess the 6th point was not going into nature, but just kind of being more natural, just kind of getting into this more natural state of being. It's an interesting word. What is natural? Really, what I mean when I say natural is true. What is true in this present moment? Because what is true is a very interesting phenomena, because it's not untrue, but it's very true. And the thing is though, this is definitely connected to your spiritual awakening and manifestation as well, if you're interested in knowing about that, which I'm going to talk about that right now, because that sounds awesome to talk about, and I don't see why I should talk about that. It's like, because think, when I started to manifest, I'll just say it like this. When I started to manifest all sorts of different things in my life, when my life started to explode, I started to manifest all the things that I've ever wanted. You know what had happened? It happened when everything started to feel natural. Just natural, just normal. Not that there wasn't lots of love there, lots and lots of love, lots of connection to who you are, but it was just a very natural feeling. It's just a very natural and connected feeling. And when I was in resistance, trying to struggle my way through life, that natural feeling was never there. There was never that natural feeling. So that natural feeling that you can start to develop is something that might happen as a result of your spiritual awakening. And of course, if you're experiencing this just more natural vibe in your whole life, just like a consistency in the energy flow, well, then that's a really huge sign that you might be going through a spiritual awakening, because spiritual awakening is really about being more natural. It's like, what is more true? But again, when I say natural, what I really mean is true. What is more true in this present moment? Because it's not so much about ideologies, about like natural, because this is like, every human being's different. I'll just say it. What works for me is not going to work for you. And don't get it twisted. Don't think that something that works for you is going to work for somebody else too. Whether it's natural or unnatural, or this food or that food, or this diet or that diet, what you want to do is do what is true to you and what feels natural, what feels very naturally connected to who you really are. Now, I wouldn't quite call it a feeling, or I wouldn't quite call it a thought. It's more of a deeper inner resonance that you can sort of trust in, that feels, I guess, very natural, okay? So sign number 7 that you are going through a spiritual awakening is that you feel called to switch something in your life around, just a big change, just a big change in your life. So everything is kind of transforming. Maybe you feel called to let go of a job. Maybe you feel called to let go of a relationship. Maybe you feel called to just completely switch something around in your business. Okay, so whatever the case is, it's really important to start to notice when you're feeling called to completely change your life in a way that you've never been called to change before. Usually that happens when there's an increase in awareness. This is always how it is. When you have an increase in consciousness, an increase in awareness, instantly what's going to start to happen is that everything that's out of alignment with that new level of consciousness is going to start to fall out of your life because you're that goddamn conscious. So you're so conscious that you're saying, wait a second, this is not working anymore with all these new insights that I had around what is more true to me. And then this is not working. And then maybe this person in my life is no longer in resonance. And then this job is not working. And then before you know it, you're just like, wait, I don't even know who I am anymore. You're just letting go of all these different things and you have no idea really what's happening. You're sort of just confused. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's no reason really to be confused, because what's happening is that you're just going through a spiritual awakening. That's all that's happening, is that you're letting go of the old self and you're creating space so that you can become who it is that you're truly meant to become. That's all that's really happening, is that when everything in your life is just falling away and it seems like nothing is working, it's very easy to get scared and to think that something's wrong. Well, what if I'm here to tell you, no, nothing is wrong. There's nothing going wrong. In fact, if you just trust that everything is happening in divine timing and that you are sort of just in a transitionary period, that's when everything starts to come to you in a way that it has never came to you before, because you were always in that resistance thinking, oh my God, something's wrong, right? The ego's like, oh my God, there's something wrong. No, there's nothing wrong. You're just letting go of what's not serving anymore, and it's time to create that new space for the new. Okay, so sign number 8 that you're going through a spiritual awakening is that you have a complete change in your friendships. Your friendships are completely different. So and your relationships overall, and the way that you feel called to talk to people is just completely different. You're just completely in a totally different sort of mentality when it comes to who it is that you engage with and what kind of boundaries you have and who you let in. So you're sort of like, yes, you're more open and you're connected, kind of like we talked about earlier, but at the same time though, there's this sort of boundary that you have, not from a fear-based place, but you're saying, wait a second, I need to decide for myself, like, what's best for me, right? And you know, if you're going through this awakening, you're probably very sensitive as well to other people's energy and how they actually affect you. So you're literally feeling how when you connect with somebody, you become like their energy, because the environment that you're in, you will sort of become that environment through the quantum, just the way that reality works, through quantum physics, through consciousness. What you observe is what you create, because what you're observing is what you're creating. So once you start to realize that, wait a second, everything that enters my field of consciousness, I am actually creating, you got to say to yourself, well, wait a second, I need to have more boundaries. And you know, it's not coming from fear, but it's just to say that you have a full right to be conscious of who you want to let in. And so basically what I'm saying is that if you're, you know, having stronger boundaries and you're saying that I can't let this person in because they're not resonating with what I want to create kind of mentality, that's totally normal, and that's definitely a huge sign that you are going through a spiritual awakening. So you're kind of more cautious of your friendships and who you let in and the boundaries that you have and the way that you sort of carry yourself within your relationships and your friends and all kind of relationships and romantic and friendship and whatever. You're just conscious of this and you're aware of how everything is sort of connected, which leads me to the 10th sign, which is probably one of the more epic signs. I probably should have made this like number 1, to be honest with you, but sign number 10 is that you feel that everything is connected at every single possible level that can ever be possibly conceived of forever, for infinity, for any time ever, always in existence, you're realizing that it's all connected because everythingness is nothingness. And you're just sort of seeing that at every single possible level, whether it's when you're looking at somebody in the eyes or you're talking to them, you're just conscious that it is all connected, that there is no separation. Now, you're a little bit confused maybe too, because you see that yes, I am a separate being and I am separate, and there is this sort of duality happening, but at the same time though, you're noticing that everything is connected. If you're experiencing that, if you're sort of experiencing that everything is connected, well, that's a huge sign that you're going through a spiritual awakening, because only when you're going through a spiritual awakening will you start to become conscious of the interconnectedness of all things. Sure, you can conceptualize it. You can conceptualize what it means to spiritually awaken and to kind of go through that process. But one thing that you'll start to realize though is that you're becoming conscious of it. You're not conceptualizing it anymore. You're becoming conscious of the fact that actually every single thing in your life is connected, and it's all interconnected, and it all plays a very significant role, and it's not random, and nothing happens by coincidence. Now, again, I'm mixing in some signs here, but if you feel that everything's connected, yes, absolutely, that is a sign as well that you're going through a spiritual awakening. Now, that's all I have for this video. Leave a comment down below if any of these signs resonated with you personally in your heart. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on what that sign was for you and how it impacted you. Also, please hit that like button so that more people can get access to this content, because I do believe that every single person on this planet does deserve to know that they are the creators of their reality and that they can manifest their reality and do so in the most effortless way possible. And hitting that like button does help the channel grow, and it does help the algorithm push the videos just a little bit more. You don't have to, but it would be greatly appreciated. Also, once again, if you want to work with me one-on-one personally, hit that link that's in the description box of this video. And if you want to download my free guided meditation, it will be in the description box of the video and in the comments as well. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next